Welcome back, everyone, to Racecast. We are officially back for good. We will be here every single race week until the end of the season. So do not worry, okay? We have Barcelona to talk about. Quite an interesting race. There's a little bit to dive into. Ignore the sniffles, the red eyes. I have hay fever. It is that time of the year.
Too.
Do you?
Yeah.
You don't look like it.
Oh, my eyes are proper sore right now.
Oh, they're nasty, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, if anyone has hay fever, how do you get rid of it? Tablets do not work. Nasal sprays don't work. Eye drops, they don't work. I don't know what to do, but we won't talk about hay fever. If you're new here, thank you very much. Make sure you subscribe, comment, like. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please make sure you give us 5 stars. It really does make a big difference. Yeah, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Just search Racecast. We'll come up. You'll recognise us, hopefully. And we're going to crack on now.
All right, guys, welcome along to a brand new episode. So, yeah, as Luke said, we're going to preview or review Barcelona. Before I get into talking about Barcelona, I want to touch on something because I messaged you this yesterday about, are we in a better era of Formula One? And I've thought about it. You know, we had a quite good discussion. And actually, I'd agree with you. I think we are in a better era of F1. However,
I think Matt is a typical Mercedes fan.
No, don't give me that. All right.
If Lewis Hamilton was in Max Verstappen's position, you'd be like, "This is amazing."
No,
100%.
I genuinely wouldn't.
And be like, haha, they changed the regs and Mercedes are still the best.
No, I actually wouldn't, because we discussed this before. I don't like to see one dominant car. You go back to 2021, okay? You had a great battle between two extraordinary teams, two fantastic drivers, team principals, and it was great. However,
I do just want to jump in there and just say the issue is we had such a good final season with the old regs.
That is the issue. With it now, and we wanted closer racing, we wanted more overtaking, granted, and we've got that. The issue is, and what's shown again yesterday and in Monaco, well, not necessarily Monaco, but what you saw yesterday is you're getting more overtaking, you're getting better battles, but realistically mid-grid.
Yeah, but what I will say, right, is Max Verstappen drove the wheels off that car, right? Sergio Perez could not go from P11 to P2.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen Max go from
P10 back in...
I'm pretty sure... I swear he started further down at one point.
Yeah.
And he won the race. Miami, where did he start? He didn't get into Q3 in Miami, did he?
No.
Perez could not get past the two Mercedes. Okay, they've had an upgrade. But if the upgrade was that good, why weren't they closing in on Max? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is, and it goes back to the Lewis Hamilton thing. Yeah, okay, that Mercedes was the fastest car.
Yep.
You still had Lewis driving the wheels off it. Now, if you had two Perez's in that team, I'm not 100% certain Red Bull would have won every race this season.
No, I'd agree with you on that one. Yeah, Max is the difference in all of this. Same as Lewis was back in the Mercedes era. What I'm saying is, I think from a fan's point of view, and you look on Twitter after the race yesterday, people are going, well, that's pretty boring, pretty predictable. And it is predictable because you've got such a phenomenal driver in Max Verstappen who, no matter what is thrown at him, he just deals with it like a pro. The difference is, from a fan point of view, and going back to what you're saying about Lewis Hamilton, no, it's not even about Lewis Hamilton. And if it was in the position, I would say that, stop winking at the camera. I would say the exact same. We wanted a better battle. And you look at the beginning of last season when these new regulations came in, you were thinking, okay, we've got Leclerc here, we've got Max. That soon changed for many reasons. But Red Bull have won every race so far this season. 8 races in, they've won every race. Max Verstappen hasn't finished below P2. Granted, fair play to him because he's phenomenal. And great, we're getting closer racing, we get more overtaken. but wouldn't you want a championship battle rather than overtaking back down in like P10, 11,
Wait,
12?
Yeah, I mean 100%, and that's why like 2021 blessed us.
100%.
Like what a season! And then I think we went into 2022 even as Mercedes fans pretty optimistic because we were like, okay, the Mercedes is fucked, but we are going to get a battle between Leclerc and Verstappen. So like we can live with that. At least the season's going to be entertaining. And yeah, that did soon change. I think that's the 2021 set us up for failure because it's almost like, man, I wonder what 2022 would have been like had the regs not changed. Even now into 2023, like it would have been.
Granted, if you hadn't had the 2021 season,
If you
in theory we shouldn't have anyway because the regulations should have been in 2021 because of COVID. So
if we went from 2020 to 2022,
you wouldn't have thought anything about it.
People would just be like, oh well.
At least you got better overtaken. You've got better overtaken. You've got another different team.
And now it's just Red Bull are the fastest team.
And I want to emphasize here. I'm not saying this because I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan and Lewis Hamilton was in there in 2021. What I mean is, I was much more invested in a proper championship battle than I am in Tsunoda's just overtaken Zhou or whatever.
In fairness, we said that on here. Like, I could live with the other cars slowly closing the gap to Red Bull. So long as in the meantime Perez is taking it to Max, and if they're having a title battle, I can live with that. I just need something.
I need
exciting.
something, and that's what I want to see. I want to see that championship battle, and like you say, whether that's Perez and Max going at it, whether that's Leclerc and Sainz, I just feel. What was it yesterday? 20 something seconds,
like 21 seconds or something.
And again, fair play to Max Verstappen. I take nothing away from him. Phenomenal drive. He controlled it perfectly. And I'm not being funny. He got told to slow down because he was on track limits, and he still went and smashed the fastest lap on older tyres than what Perez was on. So
Perez set it on a fresh soft.
Yeah, it's just mad. That guy is on a different level. And
I read like apparently because he was asked like, were the team annoyed with you that they said like just bring it home now and then you went and set the fastest lap? And he said, like, well, the thing is that the team don't know how fast I can go. Like, they don't know how much pace is in the car.
Yeah.
So he was like, when I heard the lap time, he was like, I knew I could beat it.
And the worrying thing is, the scary thing is, he probably had another 2/10 in that car per lap.
Yeah, he probably.
He had probably more in it, and that's the scary thing. What this Red Bull is.
I actually have quite a good stat about Red Bull.
Yeah.
Right. So this is comparing, obviously, throughout the years. There's been dominant cars.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you know, in terms of laps led across the season? Now, obviously, this is asterisked at the moment because the season isn't finished, but all the other results are from like full seasons. What is the most dominant car in F1?
I'd probably say this Red Bull.
It's very close.
Because you've got the Ferrari of Schumacher, but
from what season? So like this is specifically seasons.
I honestly couldn't tell you because he was dominant for a long period of time. But are you looking at like the
1988 Ayrton Senna's McLaren?
Really?
Well, not him, but the McLaren probably was a lot of them were him, but McLaren led 97.3% of all the laps across that season. Now, the second most dominant car, obviously, we're not at the end of the season. So far, it is the Red Bull from 2023, which led 96, or has currently led 96.2% of all the laps this season.
Because I've seen that. I think isn't it something like 14 laps other cars have led this year. The rest has been a Red Bull.
Now, we talk about the 2014 Mercedes.
Yeah.
That across the season, I say only, compared to the Red Bull, it's a lot less. 86.2%.
Which in any other season you would go, that's phenomenal.
But that's the thing. So this Red Bull is 10%. It's operating at 10% more capacity than that Mercedes that we're all like, wow.
I honestly can't see apart, whether if you get a mechanical failure or whatever, I cannot see any other car winning this year. I would not surprise me Red Bull winning every race this year.
Yeah,
that's the mad. That is mad. Just finishing on what I was talking about earlier, guys. Get in touch. What do you think? Do you wish we had more of a championship battle, or are you happy with how things are going in the sense of we're seeing more overtaking, we're seeing closer racing? Let me know what your thoughts are, because me personally, give me a championship battle all day long, whether it's as Perez, Max fighting, whether it's Lewis and Max fighting.
We all know that we like Lewis and Max.
Yeah.
We like that battle. Everyone likes that battle because they are the two best drivers on the grid.
Yep.
Lewis is he's the guy.
Yeah.
Max is the new guy. I know he's not a new guy, but I mean it like, we've gone from sort of Schumacher to Seb to Lewis, and now like Max. So we still got that opportunity to see that battle because we didn't get that you didn't have. I know you had Alonso come in, he won like the 2 seasons in the Renault, but it's 2 years. We didn't see Schumacher against Seb. We got Lewis and Seb, but obviously it was in a different context, and the car wasn't always there, and Seb didn't seem the same. But then we did have Lewis at his peak, Max seemingly at his peak, up against each other, and it did provide like the best season.
Yeah, it's fun. I was so invested in that season,
and Lewis is still at his peak. Like we can still
he showed
get
that
this
weekend.
battle.
He showed that this weekend. I tell you what, I would love to see a championship battle. Okay, Max, Lewis, Alonso.
Oh yeah, that would.
Can you imagine like 3 of the greats?
That would get feisty. I know Lewis and Max seemed very friendly on the podium. They did
on the podium, yeah.
Lewis and Fernando have one of the weirdest relationships.
Yeah.
I can't work out whether they're just consistently passively aggressive with each other or they do actually like each other and they just sort of wind each other up. Obviously, mainly it's Fernando saying stuff to sort of get the headlines against Lewis, but it is funny.
I just think, Lewis knows where he is. He's smart enough to know, hang on, he's not competitive at the moment in the sense of they don't have a competitive car. Give him a competitive car, they won't be nicey nice like it will go back. But let us know what you thought. Let me know what you think. I would love to see that 3-way title battle. Alonso, Max, Lewis. I think that would be phenomenal. Who do you think would win the title? If they're all in competitive cars and they're all, challenging, who would win out of that 3? Because all I know is it'd be a fantastic season.
That would be
I'd be heavily invested.
Because that is one thing like we actually haven't had for a long, long time. Is like
3-way battle.
Yeah, like more than 2 people.
Yeah.
We had.
That's what it means by a 3-way battle. More than 2.
What if there's 4 people?
4-way battle.
Exactly. So just more than 2. It's not the sharpest one in the toolbox. This one, but since probably 2011, 2012, that sort of time.
Yeah, I don't think we've had a proper. I don't think we've had a proper like.
We've had some good title battles. Mainly when Nico was still at Mercedes.
Yeah.
Bottas didn't really fit the bill, and then we've obviously had Max and Lewis, and that was a 2-way, which is great. But I think it would be cool, like with more people in it.
Yeah. No, I agree. Shall we get on to qualifying? Let's delve into
Barcelona.
Into Barcelona. So I was away at the time, so I was in and out. I was walking around a shopping centre and my Sky Go was just dropping out every 5 minutes. So you'll have to catch me up on this, but I watched the highlights. Q1, I don't think anyone expected Charles Leclerc to be eliminated. But
I don't know what was going on with that car. So in FP1, he was P8. I was a bit like, oh, it seems off. And the Alpines were up there. Then FP2 is P6. And then even FP3, P7. It's a little bit off, but
You expected enough to get into
Yeah, because
Q2, Q3.
Because the issue was he had something wrong with his car, and they hadn't got as far as I'm aware, still to this point they don't know what was wrong with it. They changed everything in that car.
What I don't understand with this, okay, so they changed the rear wing, okay, of the car. So they didn't know what was wrong.
That wasn't all that they changed.
So the new upgrades came to this car this weekend.
Oh yeah,
they had issues. They couldn't work out what it was. So their first thing was like, it could be the rear wing. So let's just change the rear wing. Why are you changing stuff if you don't know what the actual issue is? It's like me. It's like me going into like Quick Fit and them going, I think there's an issue somewhere, and they go, all right, we're going to change tires, all your engine, like. Okay, what's the actual issue? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, like they're just speculating.
It's just baffled me.
It's like having a leak and they just come in and change the carpet. It's just like that team really,
I don't get
really surprises me every week.
Yeah.
Because we had I don't know where he got this from, but Fred Vasseur said, and I quote, "Ferrari made step forward in terms of potential in Spain." You had a driver out in Q3 with an apparent issue that didn't seem to affect him in FP3, so I don't know why it suddenly turned up in qualifying. You then had no idea what the issue was, then got him out on the racetrack, started him on hards, I believe, and then brought him in after like 17 laps.
So, no, this was interesting. Okay, so I had the same thought process as you, and I think I put it in our group chat. I was like, this guy is on hards, and they're pitting him on like lap 17 or something. Listening to Charles Leclerc post-race, he was very much that he just had no grip. It was very slippery on those hards. Performance was really poor. So I think they had no choice but to get him off those. Obviously, when they went on to softs, the balance felt a bit better.
Yeah.
But he said, well, being on those hards, he said it was just a nightmare. He said he couldn't work out what. He then got asked the question, is it, with these upgrades coming in, it's going to get worse before it gets better? His response was, well, it can't really get much worse, can it?
It can't get worse. He was out in Q3, like... Q1, sorry, yeah. It's, no, it was a terrible weekend for Ferrari, and they've so obviously taken a step back that even now Mercedes are ahead of them. Like, I think quite comfortably, we've seen race pace terms, not even with these upgrades. Like, before, the Mercedes is a better race car.
It's a more reliable race car.
It seems to be able to go round the 50, 60 laps at a quicker pace than that Ferrari is able to.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, they're able to pull the times out over one lap in that Ferrari. But it just does not race well. And I know obviously the speculation is that it's to do with like keeping the tyres in the window and stuff like that. But I don't understand how he can look at that weekend and be like, that was a real step forward. Because it wasn't, to be honest. And you brought upgrades that, well, you could argue have made the car look worse.
We said this, didn't we, in our pre-season preview of Fred Vasseur is under a lot of pressure.
Oh, yeah.
He's obviously gone into this season with some big names leaving, engineer-wise. He's come from, an Alfa Romeo. He's come into such a iconic team like Ferrari.
This is the most high-pressure job in all of Formula One, along with being a Ferrari driver.
And actually, I would say, well, they are worse off than they were under Bonotto this time last year.
Oh,
obviously,
well, yeah, 100%.
Well, even towards the end of the season, they're in a worse position. You've got two drivers who look like they have a lot of pressure on them. They look like they're not delivering. But you've got Carlos Sainz, who's getting more and more heated as the season goes on.
He's getting agitated on that radio. And did you hear him in the race?
No.
Where to be fair, he wasn't agitated, but they were talking about pace, and he was like, "The pace is good, like relax, basically."
Yeah.
And then he had Lewis closing in on him quick, and it got to the point where they had to pit him because Lewis was going to overtake him.
It was like half a second, but that's right. Yeah.
It was just Lewis was just chipping away at it, and they said you need to pick up the pace.
Yeah.
he's like, relax, pace is good. No.
It just worries me. I say it worries me, and I find it sad because you've gone from this time last year talking about Ferrari being title contenders to them being lucky if they will finish
At
P4. Really,
yeah, because at this rate, that Alpine
is going to start picking up.
They're starting
Yeah.
to find some good pace. So, you know, Gasly wasn't unlucky. He deserved the penalties, the 2 penalties that we'll talk about. But without those, yeah, the weekend could have been even worse for Ferrari.
I think Ferrari will pick it up, but at what cost and where they will be by the time they actually do pick it up. Obviously, you know, Barcelona is a very different track to anything else on the calendar. It's a very good testing track, and this is where certain, you know, cars do well. You look at Mercedes this weekend, had a very solid weekend. They look good in practice. You then head into qualifying.
They didn't look good in all of practice.
Didn't look, no, in certain aspects of it. What was he? He was P1 in P1, wasn't he? Or
No,
I completely made it up.
In
Q1, he was P1.
Yeah, in FP3, Lewis was 3rd, but FP1, 10th and 12th, FP2, 8th and 11th.
Okay, let me rephrase this then. So the Mercedes going into this weekend, you had a lot of hope because obviously they brought a lot of upgrades. They showed certain aspects, certain pockets where they look quite quick. You head into qualifying, Q1, Hamilton is P1, I believe.
Q1, Lewis was P1.
Yes. So we got a bit of hope. We were like, okay, fine. Ferrari going out in Q1, you're kind of, okay, this is a bit weird. Heading into Q2, George just couldn't quite get it, could he?
Yeah, George
struggled.
Definitely struggled, but we saw that at Monaco, I think, a little bit, where he looked like he was struggling with the new car. He obviously turned it around in the race, but yeah, he did struggle in qualifying.
Yeah. Obviously, he went out in Q2. Head into Q3.
Perez also went out in Q2. What the hell? Like, there's no other, like, how?
I take back what I said about him being a potential title candidate because, I mean, you showed this weekend he is nowhere near Max Verstappen. He is in a Red Bull, which in theory should be finishing P2 every race, minimum P2 every race. He started what, P11? Was it P11?
P11.
P11.
But he was 3/10 off Piastri, who was P10.
Yeah. That's mad. That's mad.
Against that McLaren as well.
I always think, and I know we can sometimes be quite harsh in the sense of, okay, you're a professional driver and you shouldn't be making these mistakes. And you are in a high pressured situation. You're driving these cars at a ridiculous speed. But these are meant to be the best drivers in the world, and that's why you're there. He's at a top team with Red Bull, and actually he has a car which is the same as Max Verstappen's, and he should be as quick. Well, not as quick, but he should be
at least getting those P2.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you know, incidents happen in the race. He can't be going out in Q2 in that car.
There's no,
unless something happens, you know, for whatever reason, there's some sort of like
he crashed in Monaco. Like, fine, okay,
like these things happen. Like, so long as they're not happening too often.
Yeah.
But this was literally a pace issue.
Yeah, It's interesting, isn't it? Because Sergio Perez has now gone from being 2 races ago a title contender to now going, if he continues like this, he may not even be in a Red Bull seat come the end of the season.
Yeah.
And it shows you in F1 how quick that can turn. And the issue is you can't argue with that. You can't argue with the fact that Sergio Perez is given the best car, one of the best cars F1 has seen in years. Okay.
One of the best cars I've ever seen.
Ever seen, yeah, I agree. And you're not performing. You can't, there's no excuses. There's no excuse to go out in Q2. There's no excuse that he shouldn't have finished on the podium yesterday. There's no excuses anymore. And you're at a point where Perez has, over the season since he's been with Red Bull, pockets of really good races, and that's what saves him. They're like, okay, yeah, he's still got it. He comes back in, and this year he had a good couple of races, where he picked up those wins, and it's like he's fumbled. And it's sad to see because I like him, and I'm more disappointed because I was so hopeful we were going to get a title battle this year, a championship battle between Perez and Max, and he's fumbled it again.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard to recover now because I just can't see Max making the mistakes.
He's like 50-something points already behind him.
Yeah, so I mean, realistically, he needs Max to like DNF twice, and he needs to win the race.
Yeah. And his performances at the moment, I can't see that happening. He may turn it around, and towards the end of the season, he might pick up those P2s, P3s again. But it's not good enough for that type of car to not be finishing on the podium yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. It was a very poor weekend for Sergio Perez. We obviously then went into Q3.
Yep.
Where we had Verstappen. Verstappen qualified 5/10 ahead of P2, which was Carlos Sainz.
It could have gone either way. It was so close.
It says it all, doesn't it?
He got out and walked to the third sector.
That is incredible. It was 1.1 second up on Sergio Perez's time.
It's just ridiculous.
So Lando Norris pulls P3 out of nowhere.
Yeah, where did that come from?
That was a pretty incredible lap.
Yeah.
Gasly, we spoke about this.
The Alpine is looking good.
Do you know what? Actually, Otmar Safnar nailed it. Said prior to this weekend that we fully expect to be ahead of the Mercedes and the Ferraris this weekend. I'm not going to mock him.
They were correct about the Ferraris.
It didn't quite happen, but Alpine, they're one to watch at the moment. I think they are moving in the right direction. They got a bit of stick at the start of the season, probably from us as well. Otmar got it in the neck from the big boy at Alpine.
Yep.
But it shows they're on the right track. They are making gains. You know, Gasly able to get P4 and Ocon getting P7. I mean, that's the sort of region they really want to be in because they can, with the way Ferrari are going, they can get that fourth spot. Yeah. If they keep making these, chipping away with the upgrades, making these progress, this little bit of progress, I think Alpine are a good team. I wonder if Oscar Piastri is regretting not going there or not staying there.
I mean, if you're looking at form, I'd be saying yes. Shout out to Sainz because, I mean,
we talk about Max,
how bad Leclerc was.
Yeah, we talk about Max being 1.1 second quicker. Carlos Sainz was 1.3 seconds quicker than Charles Leclerc.
Mad.
Which, you know.
But, you know, he had a very decent qualifying in his home race this weekend. Obviously, I think everyone was expecting Lewis to get P2. He had a reasonably good, you know, in the final round, the pace looked all right.
Yeah,
in Sector 1, Sector 2, and Sector 3 was just...
Lewis was... That qualifying was disappointing. As a Lewis fan, I was sitting there and I was like, P5? I was like, what the fuck, mate? You've gone from, like, P1 to... I don't know where he was for... Was it, like, P1, P4, and then P5? Like, you're behind Norris and Gasly. I was like... I'm sure he'll overtake them. But
his Sector 3 was really poor, wasn't it? He had his rear went...
the first weekend as well that Stroll out-qualified Alonso.
Yeah.
Stroll was P6, Alonso P9.
We'll get on to Stroll and Alonso later because
we got some things to say about them.
It makes me laugh.
Hulkenberg?
Yeah, he finished what, P9?
P8. What, the Haas confuses me as well. The thing is, right, and I think Christian Horner said this. He said it's so unpredictable behind us. We know Red Bull are going to finish first, but what goes on behind them is confusing as fuck. Qualifying is one of the weirdest things.
If you look at Monaco last week, it was just like, I have no idea what's going on.
We've had so many close qualies this year, and I think like that Haas, like Hulkenberg I don't think he'd be able to finish P8 in the race.
No.
But
over a lap.
Yeah, we're seeing these like incidents over a lap where cars are showing like ridiculous pace. I don't understand it. It might be to do with the regulations and how cars are designed. Like we see the Mercedes not necessarily so quick over one lap.
Yeah.
Race pace, it's a good car.
But even last year, their race pace was good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For some reason. Yeah, no, I agree. The start of the race.
Controversial, to say the least.
So down into turn one, Max and Sainz had a good start. He was, they were neck and neck heading down into turn one. Max squeezed him off a bit. Not squeezed him off, but, yeah.
Max kind of ran him off.
Yeah.
Max pulled a typical Max move that, had it have been done to him, I'm sure the two of them would have just come together.
Yeah.
Sainz
Which would have been great, because...
Sainz yielded, but didn't take the escape road. This then led to Lewis having to...
back off a bit.
Dart out the way, and then as Lando went for the move, Lewis had to move, and they touched. That was a racing incident.
Yeah, I mean...
It was unfortunate for Lando, really.
It was. I don't quite know, because placing it... I still don't understand why... He was never... You could see Lewis was coming in, but you could never see Lando was going to get through. It was enough gap to get through.
I don't know. I kind of think there was.
Do you think?
Yeah.
I mean...
I understood why Lando did it. He obviously is not going to anticipate that Lewis is going to randomly move across.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't make any sense for like Lewis to then change the position of his car.
Yeah.
And he only moved because of the incident between Sainz and Verstappen. But there was a similar incident later on in the race, which we'll touch on, and we will draw a few comparisons, because one of them ended up with a penalty, the other didn't.
Which one was that?
We'll get onto it.
So yeah, really unfortunate for Lando Norris that he ended up pitting. He had damage to his front wing.
Yeah, he had to get a new front. He had a 17-second pit stop on lap one.
Yeah, and his race was pretty screwed, finishing P17 in the end. On a whole, the Ferrari pace just went off. After that, Max was quite comfortable leading. He went off a bit, but
Lewis had to get past. He had to get past Stroll then, didn't he? He was stuck behind Stroll for a little bit, and then he had to try and close the gap to...
Which he did relatively quick. And then he hunted down... Again, we touched on the Ferrari strategy. I don't quite get it. I understand it more now from the Leclerc point of view with regards to their tyres. Obviously, if they're working and you're losing pace, it makes more sense just to come in, get rid of those hards. I get it. Carlos Sainz...
I think he was trying to cover the undercut.
Yeah, the undercut was strong.
It was strong.
Very strong this weekend. You look at, was it George? He did it on Lewis, didn't he? He came out and he was literally, it was 10 seconds at one point. He came out and he was like 5 seconds behind.
We should also, George Russell's start was...
Mega.
Very good. I will say, there was a very tactical runoff from George.
Yeah.
Down into, well, he came off at turn 2. At the end of the day, that to me shows that he's read the rules very clearly or very closely. Because obviously you are meant to run off there. I don't actually think he gained from it, but I think he prevented himself from losing by doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because he had already gained all those positions, but it was a very tactical move to go off the track and down the escape road.
Phenomenal drive from him.
Oh yeah, he had a great day.
I mean, especially as he struggled early on in the, in qualifying that, to come home on a podium is phenomenal for Mercedes. Just want to touch on Mercedes quickly. They had a very solid race. Lewis seemed in control. No one seemed, once he got past Sainz, pit stops were good.
P2 was always safe for him.
I still don't quite get Mercedes pit stops because they're still roughly around the 3 second mark.
Yeah, they are consistently 3 seconds.
Yeah, you look at things like Red Bull, they're like 2.3, 2.4.
Yeah, 2.4 is a slow stop for Red Bull.
Yeah,
I think I'm expecting to see 2.1, 2.2.
Alpine this weekend, they did a 2.5, I think it was. So they're relatively quick. But Mercedes, they come in at like 3.4, something like that. Still doesn't make any sense to me. Surely just, I suppose, work on that.
Practice.
They looked very good this weekend. As you said, the race pace was very strong. My concern is, and I know you were very excited about the upgrades, and actually fair play to your predictions. You got 2 out of 3, so well done to you.
Well, kind of. I got
Well, you got
two of the
drivers.
so I said, for those of you that don't remember, that it was going to be Max, Perez, and Lewis.
You did well. You did well. Fair play to you. What do you feel about this? Are they back? Because my gut feeling is, there's a lot of people who were very excited yesterday. Oh, Mercedes are back. This is brilliant. Now we're going to really start getting them back in the championship battle. I'm very conservative with this in the sense of, we saw this last year. Mercedes were very strong at Barcelona. Granted, Lewis had his incident in lap 1, but he had a very strong race, came back, finished something like P4, P5 last year. I can't quite remember.
He ended P5 because he gave the position back to Sainz because he had to lift and coast, basically.
Yeah. So, and they had upgrades last year. So they were strong last year, and then they went to Canada and they were pretty poor. And then the rest is history from last year. So, as a Mercedes fans, are they back, or are you a bit like, actually, come Canada, we could just see exactly like last year?
I am not getting excited just yet.
Yeah.
But I think the concept of the car looks more conventional.
Yeah.
To the point where I think maybe it is more understandable. The general consensus that you get from hearing from Andrew Shovlin or Toto or just forgotten his name. But the general consensus is we know what we're doing now. We know what the next step is. It's not so much we kind of don't know why the track works, why the car works one track and then doesn't work at another. Obviously, we are yet to see it, but it was more impressive at Monaco than we've seen. It was obviously impressive at Barcelona. Canada will be quite telling. And then we go to Silverstone, where it was good last year as well.
Yeah.
But
can we just say, well, even before the upgrades, Lewis was on the podium, wasn't he? P2 earlier in the year, Australia?
Yeah.
So that was even before the upgrades and the change.
I do think the car was better than... Remember, this time last year, Mercedes had the porpoising, which was absolutely killing the performance.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't have any of that, but the car did look a bit unstable this year. It does look a lot more stable. It still doesn't look perfect to drive. You see that Red Bull and it's bang, turns the steering wheel. Oh, there it goes perfectly.
Yeah.
It still doesn't look like that, but it's a long way to go. Chances are Mercedes are not going to be back, quote unquote, until next year.
Yeah, well, they've already said, and it kind of irritates me. Oh, yeah, we're building the car for next year so we can really challenge.
It's why didn't you fucking do that last year?
Yeah, exactly. Why do we have to wait another season for you to then start to compete?
Why did we need the car to be shit at Bahrain for you to then be we got it wrong? Yeah, and now you've just wasted 100 million on this new car.
Oh shit, lads! Yeah, we should have put the other one on. Fucking why?
Oh, we've got a B spec in the works, but why wouldn't you just do that in the first place?
It's interesting because, as we said, Mercedes fans, we're happy that they look good this weekend, and let's hope they're back in it.
Honestly, I just want another war between Verstappen and Lewis.
Yeah. Oh, that's a war.
I haven't felt those emotions since 2021. Nothing has come close. So give us another war.
From the other aspect, it was disappointing to see Aston Martin go a bit backwards this weekend. Hopefully, it's just a race, one of those off races, especially how good they've been.
Do you want a hot take?
Oh, go on then.
Fernando Alonso has said, we have upgrades coming to Canada and we are going to crush the opponents. Not Red Bull. He meant the others.
Yeah. I'm expecting Aston Martin to come back really strong.
Yeah, I do think
I think it's just a one-off.
Apparently Fernando had floor damage.
He did in qualifying, I think it was.
Oh.
So apparently in qualifying he had floor damage.
So what happened during the race? He wasn't quick in the race.
He wasn't quick.
George dispatched him fairly quickly.
He said it just wasn't wasn't their day. But you look at Stroll. He didn't have floor damage, and granted, we have our opinions on Stroll, but
first time he's out qualified Fernando. First time he's beaten him in a race.
Okay, let's talk about this beating in a race. Okay, because
Fernando, blink twice if you're in trouble. Does Lawrence Stroll have something on you that we don't know? Because we want to help.
The interesting thing is answer me this: what's more embarrassing? Okay, going ahead of your team, beating your teammate, and nothing being said, and you're like, oh yeah, okay. But people thinking, oh, do you know what? Alonso could probably have got past him, but there's nothing said by anyone, and you're kind of like, yeah, I beat Alonso, all of this, great. Or is it more embarrassing that your teammate comes over the radio and goes, just tell Stroll I'm not going to attack him, and then come when the post-race interviews and go, yeah, well, I was about, couple tenths quicker than him, so I could have overtaken him, but actually it's for 6th and 7th, so I didn't want to overtake him.
Who is this Fernando Alonso? Has he been replicated by the government?
But don't you find that embarrassing? If you're Lance Stroll and you're thinking, all right, I'll beat my teammate.
But he must know. He knows
but
that
regardless,
Fernando's quicker than him.
If your teammate has come out, because somebody asked him in an interview and said, Alonso has said that he could have overtaken you if he wanted to. How do you think? And he's like, well, we got 6th and 7th. Yeah, but was it? He said, well, it's 6th and 7th. It doesn't really matter. It's like we're fighting for P1 or 2, is it?
Right, and that is kind of true. I think I'm just confused. Like, this is not Fernando Alonso. Who is this?
Yeah, I think Alonso.
I kind of agree. Like, I think it's good team play. Like, what is the point? Like,
yeah, but isn't it embarrassing for Stroll? Stroll hasn't been great this year, and Alonso has wiped the floor with him. So you're coming over and you're going to, hi Lawrence, just want you to know, love the work you're doing. Big fan of yourself. Love your Silver Fox. Think he looks great. I'm not going to overtake your son, but I could. No, do you know what I mean? He's like, he's like basically.
Take that top off, Lawrence.
What are you wearing? No, it's like, but do you know what I mean? It's, I don't get it. It's like, you're basically coming over the radio and just saying to Lawrence Stroll, look, if I wanted to, I could take your son, but I'm going to be nice and actually, give it.
Yeah, but I'm sure that's probably not like the connotations behind it. I think he probably was just saying like, I'm not going to try and overtake him. But yeah, obviously, like, it's not looking good for Stroll, is it? But at the same time, it is, because his dad owns the team, so it doesn't fucking matter where he finishes. So it's kind of like, I
don't know. I just, if that was me and I was Stroll, one, I'd be pretty delighted because I'd be minted. And I'd never have to work a day in my life again because I just...
Even though he is. He is working though.
Well, he is, but you didn't have to, if you didn't need to.
Wouldn't have to.
But you've got this driver who's basically going to everyone around the world. I could have still, wiped the floor with him if I wanted to, but I'm just going to let him just beat me. So when it comes to the head-to-heads, when we talk about them later on in the season and we go, oh, do you remember when Lance Stroll, that one time that Lance Stroll finished ahead of Alonso?
It's going to end like, what, 23-1 or something, yeah.
I don't know. I just think if you're... Yes, he's coming across as a team player, but he's still cementing that actually,
yeah, but
if I wanted to.
I think that goes without saying anyway, doesn't it?
No.
We knew that. But I'm just more confused, like...
Who is he?
Yeah, like, who is this guy?
I think he knows what this car can do. He knows what Mike Crack is doing.
What is it doing?
I can never say that name, and Luke just is serious with it.
How can anyone... What were his parents thinking?
I watched an interview with him on, was it Channel 4 with Mark Webber. So this hotel I was staying in didn't have Sky. It just had, like, the highlights of the qualifying with
like Channel 4
Channel
or
4.
whatever, yeah.
Mike Crack was on there, and he's a nice man. He's a cool little guy.
Don't mean to call him cool. Just because he's got a dodgy name.
No, I'm not saying that. But he just seems nice. But
they never say his full name. Have you noticed that? Like sometimes, like if they do an interview with Toto, they'll be like Toto Wolff. Everybody.
Yeah.
Never Mike.
Here's Mike. Yeah, it's Mike.
Yeah.
I think Alonso knows he's in a good position. He knows that actually this Aston Martin has something special. So I think for the first time in a long time, he's got a potential, and I'm not saying it is, championship winning car over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
So he knows to deliver, he has to work well with Stroll.
Yeah, no, he does. But I'm just, I get it. Okay,
It's weird to see him
sixth
like
or
this.
seventh. Like, yeah, it's not worth fighting. But like, if he's just obviously quicker, like, just overtake him. Like, is he got like? Oh, unless there's like he's got a little bonus clause in his contract every time Stroll finishes ahead of him, 50k. I reckon that's it. I didn't think of that until now.
Oh, I don't know. Let us know what your thoughts are. If you're Lance Stroll, I say you've got to be concerned, but you haven't really, have you? Because it's your dad's company, so you're safe regardless. But
And look, at the end of the day, if he finished P6, P7, I don't think it was a bad weekend for Stroll, considering the car clearly didn't have the pace here. We're still ahead of Leclerc, ahead of the Alpines. As it goes, what do they say? It was a damage limitation weekend.
yeah. I'm expecting him to come back strong, though, in Canada, so I'm not too concerned by that.
100%. And they'll be good around Silverstone, I'm sure.
Every week we're discussing this. Tsunoda. This
Unlucky.
guy...
Have you seen the pictures of him from after the race?
No.
Oh, he looks devastated.
I'm feeling really sorry for this guy because he's consistently pushing that AlphaTauri, don't get me wrong, to like P9, P8, P9s, but he's so close to getting these points, and then something happens. Like he got a 5-second penalty for.
So this is what I want to talk about.
Okay.
Max Verstappen runs Carlos Sainz off the track, right?
Allegedly, before Red Bull fans come.
It looked pretty deliberate.
Yeah.
It's a typical Max move.
Yeah.
And he does get away with them. Like, fair enough. It doesn't really bother me. He's going to win the championship, whether he gets penalised or not. Do you know what I mean? But Yuki Tsunoda did the same thing, but was just understeering. He might have underbraked a little bit, but like he didn't run Zhou completely off. I mean, he had full lock.
Fuck on, yeah.
And Zhou had to take the escape road and whatever. Almost instantly, he gets a 5-second penalty. Now, you might argue, but it's first lap, it's different, Is it? Like, it's still...
A push-off is a push-off.
Yeah, like, you're still running someone off the track. I don't know. To me, I think Tsunoda probably did deserve the 5-second penalty. But so did Max.
There's still a lack of consistency with decision making on who gets penalties and who doesn't.
Yeah.
And
this is not a conspiracy either. You can go back and look through like the inconsistencies in the penalties. Like you'll be like, I swear that's already happened and they weren't given a penalty.
yeah, these have happened over the years, and you see this, but. Yeah, I don't know. I think Tsunoda, I'd say he deserved that 5-second penalty on a whole. And like you say, if it was consistent throughout with what Max did.
Because, like you say, he was on full lock, but chances are he had taken too much speed into the corner.
He went in there, yeah.
And therefore he understeered.
Yeah.
That then pushed Show off, and that is what it is.
And that's the disappointing thing, is that, Tsunoda up until that point had been very strong. But you've seen a lot of cars changing around that point. Around that P8, 9, 10, 11, there was a lot of different... you had Zhou there. Wasn't Hulkenberg there at one point? Or did I make that up?
Yeah.
Hulkenberg, down into turn 1, he was loving it. Some great overtakes by Hulkenberg yesterday.
But the frustrating thing for Tsunoda is, if he had just yielded that spot, that position, he still would have finished in the points.
Yeah.
So...
I think that meant Leclerc got a point, didn't he?
No, he finished P11. Gasly got a point.
Gasly got a point, that's right, yeah.
But it's one of those things that will come with experience. And I like Yuki Tsunoda. I like his angry messages on the radio. I just think he's still gaining experience. I think
where does that stop? He's in his third year now, okay? His third year being an F1 driver. When do we stop saying... it'll come with experience? He's meant to be the leader in that team now with Nick de Vries.
Yeah, but
When does that
De Vries
stop?
isn't a rookie though, is he?
No, but this is what I mean. If you're looking at the drivers who you'd say is the leader in that team, you'd go Tsunoda because he's had 2 years of Formula One experience. And answer me this, you guys who are watching, when does experience not become enough to give you an F1 seat? For example, Tsunoda.
Or like a lack of experience.
Okay, let me rephrase this. So, when does a lack of experience lose you a seat in F1?
Because like you can look at Sargent, who say they were teaching him about tyre management, where it's his first 6 or 7 races in F1. Whereas if that was happening with Tsunoda, then you'd be like, Jesus.
You look at Mick Schumacher. He was in his second year with Haas.
And he
wasn't deemed good. It wasn't deemed good enough because he was still making mistakes, so he lost his seat. Tsunoda is in his 3rd season as an F1 driver, and we're still saying, "Oh, but he, it's all experience. It's all, he's still learning." When does that stop?
The thing is what I think with Tsunoda is, in my personal opinion, Tsunoda has shown more of his potential than Mick Schumacher ever did.
Yes.
So I look at Tsunoda and I think, actually, you are pretty good.
He is pretty good.
I like him, and yeah, there is going to come a time where the lack of experience thing doesn't wash, but he has been a lot better this season in terms of those mistakes, and this, that is some serious racecraft to be able to think okay, let's give him this position. We might get a 5-second penalty. With everything going on, to think of that and then be I can still stay ahead of the person behind me. When really you don't know. And I'm just looking at the timings, and it looks like he, chances are, Gasly wouldn't have got him. So, yeah, it is a serious skill.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's shown throughout this year, considering how poor this AlphaTauri is, that he can pick up points. The difficulty is he is not picking up those points. You look it seems to be the end of the races that he seems to struggle the most. So the first 70% of the race, he's relatively strong. Well, then it comes to the final part, and that's where he seems to switch off for some reason or make a mistake.
He does seem to lose places in the tail end of races. Yeah. But he's picked up the 2 points that AlphaTauri have this season. So you're gonna cut him more slack than you are Nick de Vries. Because I know Nick is his first season in F1. Nick de Vries is not an inexperienced driver. I don't care what people say. He's not.
No,
he's a world champion.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I feel sorry for Yuki.
So do I. I like him.
It's
I'm
almost
a big fan of him.
He's on the cusp of showing that he might actually one day be good for that Red Bull seat, but he's not showing enough just yet.
It's going to go either way for Yuki, in the sense of he either turns it around and starts turning those, turning these end of the races into points and getting those points, or he'll continue with what he's doing and keep making the mistakes in the tail end of these races and he'll lose his seat, or he'll turn it around and really prove himself that he deserves to be in a better car. He's got a lot of pressure on him. It was okay last year. He had Gasly with him. He could show that he had a bit more time, but regardless of what people say, he is the lead driver in that car. And he needs to start turning those errors into points. Because if he doesn't, I can imagine it's going to be an uncomfortable conversation come the end of the season.
Yeah. And I just want to stress, I don't think he should lose his seat.
I don't think he should, and I don't want him to. I really like him. But like I said, being in the third season of F1 only gets you so far.
And if you don't perform. We know how ruthless Red Bull are.
Yeah.
With drivers, but I am confident that Yuki Tsunoda will start delivering.
I hope so. I really hope so,
because he's currently P16 in the championship. He's level with Kevin Magnussen.
Okay. I mean, there's 20 drivers, but...
Yeah, but if he gets another 4 points, he's now P12.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's close. It's still very early on in the season, but he needs to start picking up the points.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, you know. And the AlphaTauri, as I said, isn't the greatest car, but it still has the potential there because it is literally the end of the races where he seems to muck up, and that is a real concern for them.
Yeah, no, it is because, you know, when you're down the bottom end of the constructors, those singular points actually do mean a lot.
Make a difference, yeah. Make a big difference. Just finishing, we covered everything. We missed everything. I feel like we've gone all over.
No retirements, no safety cars in that race.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible. No?
Yeah.
I thought that was.
But saying that, you'd expect more in Monaco, and you only had like what?
Yeah.
2 retirements.
True. Stop driving so safely. Crash.
So looking at driver standards after the Spanish Grand Prix, so Max Verstappen is on 170 points. Sergio Perez is P2 with 117 points. Alonso is third.
Just give it to Max now. Give it to Max. Already.
Alonso is third with 99 points. Lewis Hamilton's P2 yesterday put him into P4 with 87 points.
We was already P4.
Yeah, okay. Well, I didn't know how to word that without saying he's...
It's put him 12 points within touching distance of Alonso, which I'm pretty happy about.
If you're looking at George Russell, he's in 5th with 65 points. Carlos Sainz, followed by Charles Leclerc. I mean...
Just quickly, the 2 Mercedes drivers there, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is what we were talking about. Lance Stroll is obviously, what, P8?
P8.
Fernando Alonso, P3. Mercedes are P2 in the constructors.
Yep.
That's how important it is to have 2 consistent drivers. Now, I stand by the fact Mercedes have the best driver pairing on the grid, hands down.
Yeah.
There is no question about it.
So, this is your constructors. So, Williams are in P10 with 1 point. AlphaTauri...
Did you see the pictures of their floor, by the way?
It's like the flattest thing ever.
Logan Sargent crashed in... I can't remember what practice session, one of them. And they lifted the car up. Oh my God. If you haven't seen the pictures of the RB19's floor and the W14 from Monaco, firstly... Do you not have Twitter or Instagram or something? Go and look at this this Williams floor and compare it to those. It honestly, it looks like a kid drew it. And I don't mean that
You're lucky it stays to the ground.
Yeah, I don't mean that like in a disrespectful way. But when you compare it to the level of detail on the Mercedes and the Red Bull.
Yeah.
And then... It is genuinely like the comparison of like a fine art drawing of like
you wonder
a car and me drawing one on a piece of A4 paper.
You wonder what... Well, it's pretty evident to see why Williams are struggling this year.
Yeah, what was it James Vowles said? They don't have the technology to create it digitally, which, I mean, firstly, it's 2023. Williams, I'm sure, are probably not short of cash. I'm not saying they're one of the most
sure they have a computer.
cash-rich teams. But he said, like, I could not believe it. So I think we are going to see movements from them over the next couple of years, but it's going to take time and investment. But the floor, I thought it was a joke. I genuinely thought like someone had made it just to like take the piss out of them.
Yeah. But
it was actually real.
It's awful, isn't it? You know, earlier on you said Alpine potentially could get P4 ahead of Ferrari.
Huh?
Well, they are 60 points behind.
That can change.
So Red Bull...
Charles Leclerc didn't finish in the points this week.
Very true. Red Bull are in P1 with 287 points. Mercedes are now in P2 with 152 points, followed by Aston Martin with 134. Ferrari in P4 with 100.
I'm going to make an early call. Mercedes will get P2 in the constructors this season.
I
think they're going to squabble with Aston Martin over whose car is faster throughout the year. but consistently the Mercedes will be faster than Lance Stroll.
And I think that's the biggest thing.
That's the difference.
George Russell and Lewis Hamilton will consistently pick up the points. Lance Stroll will pick up points, but lower points.
Yeah.
And that is going to be the difference come the end of the season.
Because there will be times where where Lewis and George do beat Fernando.
Yeah.
But I don't think there'll be many incidents where Lance beats the
100%.
the British boys.
To you guys who are watching, do you think anyone else will win a race this year, or do you think it will just be Red Bull dominance? Let me know.
Max Verstappen dominance.
Or Max Verstappen dominance.
So, I gave you a stat on Red Bull.
Yep.
Got one for just Max. Now,
Just for men.
just what?
Just for Max.
Just for Max, yeah. Most laps led in a career.
Yep.
Max Verstappen, after this weekend, overtook who in that list? So he's now sixth in
Most laps led.
of all time in Formula One.
Sebastian Vettel.
No, he overtook Nigel Mansell.
Ooh.
So Nigel Mansell led 2,089 laps. Max Verstappen has now led 2,143 laps.
Impressive. Isn't
Sebastian Vettel, where do you reckon he is on that list?
Third.
Good shout. How many? Max 2,143 for reference.
2,420.
So there's two drivers in between them, and you reckon there's only...
Okay, yeah. All right, valid point. 2,839.
3,501. It's quite a
Ooh.
big difference, isn't it?
What's Lewis on?
You ready for this? Goat stuff this.
Lewis must be P1.
Lewis is obviously
Yeah,
P1. It's incredible. 5,447 laps led.
Jeez.
Michael Schumacher in P2, 5,111. And then obviously in between Seb and Max, you've got Senna and Prost.
Well, if Max keeps his way, he's definitely on there for that, isn't he?
I will. I'll be surprised if Max doesn't make that number 3 spot.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't be surprised even if he gets number 2 spot at some point or P1 spot if he keeps continuing. Lewis, Max Verstappen is on a different level, and he showed that this weekend. And I know I touched on this earlier, but I still can't get over how his team engineer is like, Max, you just gone track limits, and he's like, where? He's like, turn 10. Okay, we've got black and white flag. Max, please just keep it on the track. Don't want to get a penalty. Not that it would have made any difference. He could have probably got 3-4 penalties, and he would have still won the race. And then when he comes over the radio and he goes, "What's the quickest lap?" It's a 1:16.3 or something. What are you doing?
1:16.6. I think he set a 16.3.
Oh, did he? And then he was like, "What are you doing?" 1:17.4 he was doing at the time. And then next thing you see him, he's just like, "Yeah, fastest lap." He's just a different. He's class. Like, and it pains me to say it because I am a Lewis fan, I am a Mercedes fan, but credit where credit's due. He is just utterly class. He's just phenomenal on all aspects. I think his racecraft is just phenomenal.
The only thing that will, affect whether he gets up into that P2 or P1 spot will be how long can Red Bull keep this up?
Yes, and will Mercedes come back at it? Will Aston Martin come back in?
I don't doubt that even if Max had the second fastest car, he would lead some laps.
Yeah.
But, it's right now it's going up at a rate of knots because they're just leading every lap.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't want him to get P2 or P1 because that is going to signal this domination period.
For years and years.
I'd rather him just creep up slowly along with other people.
Answer me this, because there was a question going around on Twitter the other day. Will Lewis Hamilton win an 8th title?
Yes, 100%.
I can't see it. I honestly can't see it. And the reason why I can't see it is because you got...
Firstly, he already has won his 8th.
Okay. Properly,
He did
Well,
properly win it.
Okay. For the record books.
It got properly taken away from him.
Okay. Properly with the record books, with a trophy and that, will he win his 8th title? I'm not convinced because I still think Max will dominate for years to come. Is whoever comes into that second seat in Red Bull, whether that's someone like Lando Lando or not.
Lewis is quick at... don't even give me... If Mercedes get him a car that can compete with that Red Bull, he will go toe-to-toe with Max.
But at this point in time,
Ooh.
can we get Mercedes back competing at the level of a Red Bull? I don't know. And if it is, I don't know if that's for another 2 or 3 years. And at that time, is Lewis still going to be as competitive?
Yes, don't worry about him.
Yeah, well, you say I sit with tinted glasses on at times. I'm just a bit realistic. I want it more than anything.
Clip this, come back to me in 2 years' time. He'll have it.
Okay. I hope you're right. I'd love to see it. I just think Red Bull are going to be that strong for the next couple of years.
You're putting negativity into the world now. I'm going to have to shut this down.
Right, that is it. That is a podcast over. Let me know. Will Lewis Hamilton win an 8th title? Yes or no?
We will be back next week to look ahead to Canada.
I love Canada. One of my favourite races. Have you seen that clip of that steward running back? I think it was when Jenson Button won, when it was pouring down, when the steward ran on the track to get a bit of debris in and fell over.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Every year you just see it circulating around. I love it. It's my favourite clip.
Starts like panicking.
He runs back and he falls over again. I don't know why it's so funny.
Because it's like that thing out of the movies where like you're like just run away and they like keep falling over and it, like it actually happened.
It's class. But guys, thank you very much for watching. If you are watching, give us a like, subscribe if you're new on YouTube. If you're listening to us on Spotify or any other audio platform, then please leave us a rating. It really does mean a lot to us. So as Luke said, we're back. We're back every week. So check us out, especially on TikTok and Instagram. I've been doing quite a bit. I've done a bit of work this week.
He's been back at it. I cracked the whip.
Yes. So yeah, have a great week and we shall be back next week for a Canadian preview. Bye-bye.